I'm here with Susan Weinick, and Anthony Masiello actually connected us. And first off, Susan, thanks so much for taking the time. I believe you've lost 215 pounds, if that's right.
Yes, that is correct.
Awesome, congratulations. Maybe we could just start out with where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
I am from White House Station, New Jersey, which is a little farmer town in New Jersey where it's actually quite beautiful. Not like what people usually think of New Jersey with smokestacks and crime and pollution. It's really beautiful here.
Awesome, awesome. And so I know you lost 215 pounds. Were you kind of on the larger side growing up earlier in life, or was it something that changed for you at some point?
I have struggled with my weight probably since I was 5 years old. It's been something that I think that as a parent, looking back, my parents probably thought, oh, she'll get a handle on it, or, she's big boned, or one of those things. But I did struggle with my weight as long as I can remember, and I did yo-yo diet as long as I can remember. And I, was even a sneaky little kid who hid food in her room. And, when mom went shopping once a week back in the olden days and she'd buy that one bag of cookies, they would mysteriously go missing. And I would say, I didn't know where they went. And, with Oreo cookie crumbs all over my face. But so I think there was like a gentle handling of it when I was younger, but unfortunately, it never really took. So by the time I became an adult, my weight became a huge issue, literally and figuratively.
And what was your expectation of food growing up, or what was kind of the general expectation of food in your household growing up?
Well, I grew up in a very much more Italian centric home. So food is love, and food was the center of every gathering, happy, sad, in between, everything. Food was and is still in my life the center of it. But the food then was a little bit different than the food that I consume now, obviously. And I think it might have been maybe a lack of education. I kind of grew up with the mantra that everything in moderation. But as a now adult who discovers I probably have a serious sugar addiction, everything in moderation is not going to work for me. I had to eliminate some really bad trigger foods from my diet. And it took a really long time to come to that realization, with a lot of damage done along the way, because I thought there was something wrong with me because I couldn't handle the everything in moderation mantra that I grew up with.
Got ya. And then were you surrounded by people who were also kind of on the bigger side of things growing up?
No, my two brothers, who were like athletic stars, were, really, really muscular and very strong. And my one brother, there was always this thing that we needed to get more meat on his bones because he was thin and in very good shape. My mom never really growing up, I would not say that she had a weight issue at all. My dad did. My dad definitely had a weight issue, but he also worked a very physical job and was able to do that for many, many years. Um, he was a tile setter. He was on his hands and knees in all kinds of weather and all kinds of conditions. And even though he had this rather large middle section, he still had these very strong arms and very strong legs. And, you know, uh, so it was really me. I was the chubby girl.
Okay. And then, I know you've lost 215 pounds, so you were obviously somewhat larger before. What were some of the struggles or frustrations that you had whenever you were bigger?
I don't even know where to begin. The struggles as a young child growing up was that you couldn't wear the same cool clothes as everybody else. That's changed a lot. I notice now that the stores do cater to larger size young girls. You didn't have to go into the old lady store and get the big clothes, which I don't know if that's a good thing now. I don't know if that's a good thing to make it okay to be kind of in an unhealthy state. But as I grew up and as I became a mom and had kids of my own, I was the mom on the sidelines. I was not the mom chasing her kids around. I was the mom, literally on the sidelines watching them, but not able to participate with them. And I have lots of memories of going to back to school night and those little tiny desks that everyone else seemed to be able to squeeze their adult-sized bodies into. And I couldn't even hear what the teachers may have been saying to these parents because I was consumed with fear that when I got up, the desk was going to get up with me. It might be a funny picture that you see in a movie, but it's really quite humiliating as an adult to go through life and go into auditoriums and scope out the seating arrangement to see if you're going to be able to fit in a seat. Several years ago, I took a trip to California with my kids. I just was in a panic that the airport was going to stop me at the gate and tell me that I needed to buy another seat because of my largeness. But fortunately, I traveled with my own little child, so I put her in the chair next to me, so she got the spillage. But it's humiliating, and having to ask for that extender belt on the plane. There's countless humiliating situations where you literally don't fit into the world around you. You just don't fit.
I think in an interview you said this: at 380 pounds, miserable doesn't adequately describe how I felt. I was always heavy. My life was filled with perpetual yo-yo weight gains and losses. I tried every fad diet imaginable. I even tried a form of acupuncture, getting a seed placed in my ear, which was supposed to reduce food cravings. It didn't. I tried hypnosis and eventually succumbed to lap band surgery, the biggest mistake of my life. So it sounds like you had made a bunch of attempts. It wasn't something that you were completely comfortable with or that you weren't looking to change. Looking back, what do you think? Obviously, things are different for you now. What do you think was different then that contributed to you having those up and down effects and, going to, I hate to say extreme, but going to very far measures to make a change, but still not yet being able to actually have those things be effective?
Well, up until the point where I did make the big change, which is on August 1st, exactly 6 years, I was trying to, find probably all of those traditional methods of losing weight that everyone, and a lot of people do have success with those methods, but for whatever reason, they didn't stick. I would do them and I was a champ out of the gate, but then it would wane and I would feel very discouraged and very defeated and feel really worse about myself before I even started it. So even there were intervals of time where I didn't try to diet. I just thought, I'm better off doing nothing because this yo-yo dieting, every time I would do it, I would end up gaining more weight at the end. And this was how I eventually collected 380 pounds, literally dropping 120 pounds, gaining 150, losing another. I have lost 100 pounds about 100 times, which is really frightening. And from what I understand from healthcare professionals, that's actually more dangerous than just staying, in a heavier zone, but not yo-yo dieting. But I wasn't satisfied with that, so I did keep looking and looking for something that I didn't feel like a failure when I did it, because even the lap band surgery, I didn't want that, but I felt like I was being a coward not doing it. I went to my own doctor who knew me for many years and knew that I had a weight problem, and I think he was well-meaning, but he basically said, you got to get yourself in that OR and have this done. And he was actually quite disappointed that I didn't go for gastric bypass surgery. And I thank all the powers that be every day that I didn't have that, because that's not reversible. What I had done was reversible. It hurt just as much going in as coming out. And anybody I know that's even dancing with the idea, I really try to be a cautionary tale and tell them not to do it. Unfortunately, I'm not very successful in that. I don't think people believe me. They have to have their own bad experience. Um, so, yeah, I went to a lot of extremes, and I always ended up feeling worse about myself, heavier, and eventually ending up with type 2 diabetes, hypertension, on medication every day. That was expensive. And again, feeling terrible because here I am. Now I'm the big mom, and now I'm also becoming the big expensive mom because all of these attempts at weight loss cost a lot of money, as anybody who's ever tried anything before. And you have so much hope going in, and you're willing to put that credit card down and max it out and do whatever you need to do. And, you know, very grateful at this point that I found out that the answer lies in the produce section of my grocery store. I didn't have to take any pills. I didn't have to have any more surgery. I didn't have to, prescribe to some guru who was going to tell me to put some filthy seed in my ear and come back every week and get that seed changed. Who, by the way, was morbidly obese doing that too. But
Yeah, well, I'm glad to talk to you now on the other side of that. I know it sounds like at a similar time that you were talking, you said this about kind of life. You said I work in a very busy hospital. I was embarrassed to be so unhealthy. Looking back, I don't even know how I went to work every day and raised 4 children. It was hard for my kids to have a morbidly obese mother, and because I hated myself so much, I also hated my husband. Can you talk about life at that time a little bit, and maybe coming out of that, was there a moment where you decided that you were ready to be done with all of that?
well, it was a very dark time. I feel bad for my kids. I feel like um, they really were isolated from a lot of things. I didn't want them to even have play dates. I mean, I was okay with my kids going to someone else's home, but when it was time for them to come here, I just didn't feel like anyone was going to accept me. I it's a terrible feeling of shame. It's a terrible when I look back on it, and my kids are different because of it. When I see how other kids have grown up in a more carefree kind of not aware of whether their parents had problems, they weren't aware of it. My problem was visible. It wasn't something that you could just be an adult about. It was quite visible. And when your kids now know that, why don't we go to the beach, and why aren't we doing all of these activities that I now do with my kids? But my kids are big now. I feel bad, but I'm grateful that it's changed. But I wish I could go back. But we can't go back in time. You just have to go forward, and you kind of have to forgive yourself for things. And I have apologized to my kids 6 times till Tuesday about having this mom, but I think they've also gained a lot of sensitivity to anybody who maybe doesn't fit in as well as everybody else, and I think that that's not such a bad thing. So I remind them of that they are very nice, sensitive, empathetic human beings and good citizens, and maybe because mommy had this problem that, felt shameful, and I wasn't some little, in the corner sad mom. I was a yelling, raging mom, and that's not a good environment to grow up in. It's just not. I know that, and I have a lot of regret for that, but we're moving ahead. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of a little bit of a common story. I know it was for me, and I've had conversations with other people, and I know, like, I don't know if you know Josh Lajani, but he said, I wasn't only heavy physically, I was heavy emotionally, and it affected the way that I had dealt with situations, and little things would set me off. And I mean, I don't think I had it to the same extent, but I think I had it in some similar ways. Why do you think for you, or why do you think, I don't know if you think you can say for other people as well, but why do you think the weight puts on that emotional component that I know for me, I'm a lot more low key and even keeled, and for Josh as well. And it sounds like for you, what do you think it is about that connection that causes that?
Well, I think obesity is one of the last things that people can still be mean about. There's so many things in our society now that we have to be very politically correct and mindful about, but not obesity. Obesity is linked to things like being unclean and sloppy and stupid. And then there's that shame thing that just follows you around. And, when you're in the grocery store and you're buying things that you probably shouldn't, you're feeling like you want to be incognito. You want to have a fake mustache and glasses on while you're making those purchases, because you do feel like people are watching what you're doing, or, it's a terrible feeling of shame, that I don't know what else someone might feel like that unless they were perhaps an alcoholic, continuously going to the bar every day. I mean, it is a food addiction, and like other addictions, you don't want to be seen doing it, but you do have to eat every day. You can't, you do, no matter who you are and what size you are and what your health is, you do have to eat every day. So you just feel very shameful. Even eating healthy, I felt shameful. Going into a restaurant with my family, I had remarks made to me when I would be very obese and I was trying to make a healthy choice, and somebody, I don't know what they're thinking when they say things to you like, oh, come on now, you want more than that. You didn't get looking like that, eating that way. Like, really? And that was said to me when I was quite young, and I never forgot it. I never forgot it. You don't forget things that hurt you kind of and embarrass you, and, wish that no one else in the room had hearing, because you don't want anyone else to have heard what just came out of someone else's mouth. But it does make you sensitive to other people as well. You're sensitive about yourself, but you're sensitive about other people too.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So was there a point for you where you decided to make a change? Was it a 180-degree change, or was it more of a gradual thing?
Well, I had officially been given the type 2 diabetes. That was the thing that scared me. I had lost my father when he was only 58 years old. He was a non-compliant type 2 diabetic at that point and was quite angry. I am his carbon copy. And I had 4 little kids. And I just said, and him not waking up unexpectedly on Easter morning, it devastated my family. It ruined our family. Our family's never been the same. It was 20 years ago, and it's never, ever been the same. And I looked at those kids, and I looked at me, and I'm like, I know we're all going to die. No one gets out of here alive. However, I don't want this to be at my own hand, and not this way. And it was, to me, I look back, and it was unnecessary. If he had just been, I don't know, given some better advice, some hope, something that he could wrap his brain around. And I do believe my father could have followed this, because even though he did overeat things he shouldn't have eaten, he did like good food. He did really like good food. So it wouldn't have been, it's my, shoulda, coulda, woulda. You look back and dream. But I just did not want that to happen to my kids. So I knew of something. I had a book on my shelf. It was called Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Fuhrman, and it had been sitting there for years because it had come through my world because I knew him accidentally from a life insurance exam that my husband had to do years ago. So he was on my radar, but I kind of thought it was extreme. And I didn't know if I could make that kind of extreme commitment. And then somebody pointed out to me about the definition of extreme. And going into an OR and being cut open and having somebody put a device wrapped around your stomach, if that's not extreme, I don't know what it is. So it was definitely worth a try. And there's a 6-week program that you start out with, and that was, I kind of just needed somebody to tell me exactly what to do. I didn't want to have to make too many decisions. Just tell me what you want me to do for 6 weeks. So I started the 6 weeks and I did it. And then I decided I'm going to do it again. So I continued on the 6-week thing for about 6 months. And in 6 months, I lost at least 100 pounds. And then over the course of the next year, I lost the rest of the weight, which, at that time it was 120 pounds. So collectively it was 220 pounds. And now, since I've gotten in this better shape and I go to the gym all the time, I work out with weights. So the explanation for the little extra weight on, I like to think it's because I've built up all this profound muscle mass. I feel great. I just got back right now from a hike with my daughter, and we are a public service announcement right now for why when you go hiking, you come home covered in ticks. So we've been literally picking ticks off of each other since 11 o'clock this morning.
Wow. That's crazy. We don't have, we have mosquitoes down here, but thankfully ticks aren't nearly as rampant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes are kind of scary right now too.
Yeah, they for sure are. Especially the ones down here, they can be the size of a small pet. So yeah, I know you mentioned that book Eat to Live. You said in an interview, Eat to Live has literally saved my life and my marriage. It feels like I've woken up from a lifelong coma. Would you mind talking about how's your? I know you said before you basically hated your husband. And now you said it saved your marriage. So would you mind talking about, kind of the effects that this has had on your relationships with your immediate family, your husband, maybe even your kids, and, kind of the people closest to you?
Well, at my highest weight, in my angriest self, I was kind of blaming everybody else around me for how did it get to be this way? How did I get this heavy? It must be the stress. It must be, being married to you, or, having 4 kids in rapid, succession, and not being able to work outside the home, and, financial concerns, and kind of what everybody has. But my way was to self-medicate with a lot of food, sugar specifically. And, when the kids came home from school, mommy's on the couch in literally a sugar coma, with Ben and Jerry on either side of me. And, and angry because you are waking me up from my sugar coma. I don't want to be woken up from my sugar coma. And then having to deal with making dinner, and you're full and you don't feel good. And now you have to make dinner for these people that keep coming in the door every day. And the husband who comes home and has any complaint, and you just don't want to hear it because you're sugar drunk, and it's not a good thing. It's not a happy, sugar drunk. It's bad. You're angry and you're blaming other people for the choices that you're making. So I am really grateful that the guy hung in there, because in August we're married 33 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I love him more today than I did when we got married, because it must take a lot of fortitude to stick with this. And when I'm not even kidding you. Like, if you had all my kids around me and my husband, they'd be going, "Oh my God, she was." And still can be. I still have anger in me. That didn't all go away. Oops, it didn't all go away. I just, I try to not be quite as, over the top anger. I don't know if anger is a gene or what it is, but I know that having lost this weight in this manner has definitely calmed me down a lot. Probably something that people take medication for, but thankfully, I don't have to do that. But I do, nothing's perfect. Let's just put it like that. My food is perfect, but everything else isn't perfect. But we've hung in there. I plan on hanging in there until, the end. And like I said, I'm really grateful.
Yeah. So is there anything else that changed, socially, physically, emotionally, for you, through this journey in the last 6 years or so that you weren't necessarily expecting?
Well, I wasn't expecting all this skin. Now, I don't know anybody else out there who has lost a tremendous amount of weight, and you think like, yay for me. And then you're like, oh, I still don't want to be naked in front of another human being ever. Is that too much information?
No, I think it's great. I think people need it. People need, It's the reality of what happens.
Right. It is the reality. And what I can say to people, because I actually have met people who are overweight, and then they say things to me like, I really want to lose the weight, but I know about the skin thing and I don't want to deal with that. And I think that's kind of, odd. It's like, okay, so you're going to stay overweight and really unhealthy because of some skin. Because, the magic of plastic surgery, you can have some skin removed. And I have tried with some things and had some good result. There's still more things to do, and it's an expensive adventure, but you do what you can do so that you feel like you can get back out there and start doing things that you always wanted to do. I go to the gym regularly. I wear sleeveless things. I never ever did that. It could be 120 degrees outside and you will not be seeing my arms, my skin. And I do that now, and they're not perfect, and I don't care because I know how hard I work at trying to just feel better about myself. And so that's one of the great positive changes, is that I've, going shopping for clothes. I don't have to find the women's sizes anymore. And it took me a while to remember that too. I would just sort of, totally navigate towards that part of the store and then realize, wait a minute, I'm normal size now. And when we've gone anywhere where you have to get on a ride or you have to be in any sort of like tourist situation where, there's this place called Mohonk House, which is in New Paltz, New York. And there's a hiking trail, and there's something called the Lemon Squeeze. You can Google it. And no way could I have ever even entertained the thought of doing this. I mean, this is not for anybody with what is it when you don't like closed spaces?
Claustrophobia.
Claustrophobia. And you need somebody that you trust that's going to guide you through, because you're literally like your head, everything is just squeezing through rocks. And I did it. And I'm like, I can't believe that I did that. I can't believe that I can be the person that can do that. And now it's like, we're planning more adventures. It's like, well, I want to, there's something called the Saunter, where you walk the perimeter of Manhattan Island. I think it's like 36 miles. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Where these things would never, ever have been on my radar of things I want to do. The bucket list has changed quite a bit. The vacations have changed. I want a vacation where there's a lot of activity and adventure. I don't want to be sitting and watching and being complacent. I want to be in it. It's definitely gotten me off the sidelines and into the game finally.
That's awesome. So what kind of physical activities do you enjoy now? I know you said it sounds like you enjoy exploring for ticks. But other than hiking, what other things do you enjoy doing now?
The regular thing that my husband and I do religiously, it's our little date. We take it's called Body Pump. And I think they're all over the country, but our little gym has a body pump class, and we love the instructor. She's very motivating, and we take this class together, which we're probably the only couple in the class. It's usually a bunch of women, but my husband, he loves to just join in with all the reindeer. So we have this great class, and we lift lots of weights, and, it's kind of fun, and it's challenging, and it's something I would not have been able to do. It's just something I wouldn't have even considered doing. If back in the old days when I would have these moments of going to the gym, it would always be, out on the elliptical, just sort of like watching a TV show, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I would never have been in a class. I would not have been the joiner that gets in the class and, even has the little banter with the teacher, And then this hiking thing, this kind of took off for my 50th birthday. We went to Woodstock, and we went on this hike that we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. And I didn't even know about hiking. We probably didn't even have the right hiking shoes on. We didn't have water bottles with us. We just thought it was going to be a little whatever. And now that was quite a challenge. I survived it. That's what I look at it. When I look at the picture when we came down the mountain, it does look like a survival picture. And now we go every year. That's our tradition. And we when it's done on my birthday, we eat at this little vegan restaurant in Woodstock and love it. I take pictures of my meal and, show everybody like, this is my birthday meal. I don't have birthday cake anymore, but I get a birthday. That's the way I look at it.
That's awesome. And so, looking forward, do you have any goals that I know you mentioned the saunter? Any goals, in the future, whether it's physical or just personal, that you're hoping to achieve?
I have some personal goals, and I'm going through a little bit of a crisis right now because I'm approaching another big birthday. And I'm looking back going, wow, I never did do this, or this. So it does, it's helpful to know that any goals that I do have will not be, it will not be denied me because of a weight or a physical issue. So there's a lot of traveling that we'd like to do, and the traveling doesn't scare me anymore. I don't worry about it. I'm up for the adventure. I have some personal goals for some education, opportunities, maybe a career change. I'm actively looking. I don't want to feel that this is it and I'm just going to wait now until, they bring the pine box in. I'm looking for, I'm looking to grow more.
Awesome. And if you could have a conversation with somebody, or you could give some words of advice to somebody who's maybe, where you were before 6 years ago and needs to make a change in their life or wants to make a change in their life, are there any words of encouragement that you would give someone in that situation?
Yes. And I know that people who are looking for an answer right now, I know those people because I'm that person. I was that person who was looking for an answer. And you always hear from the success stories that if I can do it, anybody can do it. And that's not necessarily true. You have to make yourself do it. You aren't necessarily going to accept some of these new rules because you're going to think, well, how am I going to go to that family gathering if I don't do what I usually do at that family gathering? And you have to really start protecting yourself. What I've always told my kids when I think that they're not taking care of themselves, I'm like, listen, and I show them a baby picture and I say, this is this little baby that I gave birth to. And now you're kind of in charge of this baby. And I want you to look inside and remember that little baby. And you have to take care of that baby now. That baby's yours. And I'm going to be really mad if you mess this up. So you have to be like any vigilant parent and any tigress and get out there and take care of that baby that I just gave you and eat the right thing and don't engage in risky, dangerous things. You have to take care of yourself and you have to take a stand against the families. My family of origin doesn't necessarily get that this is what I do. But after 6 years, they definitely respect it. They definitely have seen this huge change. And I don't know if they've come to terms with the fact that if I hadn't made this change, maybe I wouldn't be here anymore because at 380 pounds, type 2 diabetes, I work in the cardiology department. I know what happens. I see what happens every day. And to people a lot younger than me who don't get a handle on their eating, this morbid obesity and choices that they make. And they are choices.
So if you could go back and have a conversation with yourself 6 or 7 years ago before you got started on this particular journey, is there anything that you think you could have said or any words of encouragement that you think you could have given that person that may have resonated that would have helped you get started a little earlier or would have given you some words of encouragement?
Well, I think I would have hugged that big girl really tight because I think she was scared and I think that she really felt like it was too late. And it's never too late, ever. And gravitate towards the people who encourage you to do what is good for you. And if you don't have anybody in your life like that, find somebody because you do need support. And I always think about when I see somebody in the supermarket who reminds me of me and I see in her carriage things and I see her going home alone and sitting in front of the television and eating until she falls asleep. And I want to take her. I want to take her by the hand and tell her to come home with me for a week. Just give me a week, you know. But that would be weird and creepy, and nobody would like that.
If you do that as a social experiment, please keep us updated because I would love
Okay.
to share that with others. Well, Susan, lastly, where can people find out more about you and maybe what you're doing and connect?
Well, I'm on Facebook, Susan Weinick, just a regular person on Facebook like everybody else. I'm going to be in this little documentary called Eating You Alive that's coming out in September. I hope everybody goes to see it. It is about how healthcare needs to change regarding our eating and how we take care of the planet as well, because that's the other thing that lends itself to this healthy eating is all of a sudden you want to know where your food is coming from. And all of a sudden you start looking more globally. And that's really important for us to start doing that if you haven't already. So this little documentary, Samuel L. Jackson and me were like this. That's not true. But it's very interesting. And I think that, and that's something else you can Google. You can Google Eating You Alive. You'll see my little blurb talking to people along with Samuel L. Jackson. And it was, you know, it's fun. And I get to meet people like you. Like, how would this have ever happened if the Anthony connection, which has been he's just been a great friend to, be able to talk to. And he gets it when I say that I'm struggling, because this isn't all just perfect. This isn't like it's one and done. No, this is a continuous reminder of you need to stay the course because, obesity is following me. It wants me back. It wants me back bad, and I'm not going back there. So I have to stay vigilant.
Well, that's all great, and I will certainly look forward to seeing you and Samuel L. Jackson, or at least hearing his voice. And I'll include links to that, and can't wait to see all of that in the fall. But thanks so much for spending the time, for sharing your story, for being honest, and for the inspiration. And we'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
You too, Jason.